There are three reasons we should end this war. The first one is it's a no-win war, and we shouldn't ask our boys to die if we're not trying to win. The second is it's an undeclared war, and that means that our POWs don't have the rights of protection of the Geneva Convention. And the third is it's been run by the State Department, just as I think this decision was made, and we've got the greatest military leaders in the world. Let's don't have the State Department involved.
Well, my thinking is that we should hit lucrative military targets. Any Soviet ships that were hit were probably hit by flying debris and not by ordnance. And certainly there was no intention to hit a Soviet ship. And I, of course, do not concur that we should shoot at ships that are not active belligerents. I do think the bombing, however, is justified, because the best way to reduce the enemy's capacity to wage war against you is to hit him in his logistics.
Balance of power, political intrigue, margins of victory, presidential aspirations. These are all features that will be found in tomorrow's Dallas School Board runoff election for Place 1 and Place 7. The traditional battle between the Committee for Good Schools and the League for Educational Advancement finds balance of power on the school board at stake. The CGS currently holds 5 of the 9 places on the school board. They'd like to gain 2 more with victories over the LEAD incumbents, Mrs. Henry Bromberg and Dr. Dan Foster. The 2 CGS candidates, Mrs. Nancy Judy and Farrell Ray, have waged a relatively low-key campaign, a grassroots type of campaign. They've been doing handshaking and going out into the areas where they'd like to pick up those extra votes. There was one exception to the low-key campaign when Mrs. Nancy Judy charged that Dr. Daniel Foster, the incumbent for LEAD, had a conflict of interest, that he in fact was taking money from the state through a federal grant. Dr. Foster says the charge is unwarranted and unfounded. Now, political intrigue. We find that 2 CGS candidates who were elected to the school board only last year, Harry Tunstall and Tom Williams, are openly backing the LEAD candidates. Harry Tunstall says that he'll go with experience, that he thinks that Dr. Foster and Mrs. Bromberg have that experience. Tom Williams says that he doesn't like the alleged smear tactics that have been used by some CGS candidates. Let's take a look at what it amounts to as far as margins of victory. Margins of victory is exactly what CGS will have to have tomorrow if they're going to win. This is a map of the Dallas Independent School District. The CGS won in all of these areas here and some in here. However, they're going to have a bigger margin of victory to offset the areas that were picked up by the League for Educational Advancement in Dallas, in the South Dallas areas, as well as some in West Dallas. They're also going to have to overcome those boxes that were split, where the vote worked out exactly half and half. Presidential aspirations? Dr. Marvin Berkeley wouldn't mind being school board president again, as well as Eugene Smith, who's the CGS hand-picked man. There's even a possibility that Dr. Dan Foster could be a candidate if he's elected. And who's going to be elected? We'll know tomorrow after the polls are closed and the votes are counted. This is Malcolm Landess at the Dallas School Board for Channel 8 News on the Move.
I've just been in the ice bucket mostly, all week and every day, and mostly running on a trampoline type thing. That's about all I do on it.
Was it much of a transition? You were a quarterback in high school, then last year you were tight end and running back before you broke your wrist, and now here you are a quarterback again.
No, I don't think so, because really I was only working out for the first 4 games as a tight end, and I played quarterback all the rest of my life, so wasn't that much of a different change for me.
And your broken wrist didn't affect you. The injury has not lingered then.
No, not now. It was a little stiff earlier, but everything's fine now.
There's a lot of
This is Bachman Creek. It looks tame now, but there's been one major flood here in recent years in which 4 lives were lost. Up until this past week, the best engineering solution to the flooding problem was to build a relief channel, which would be beautified by landscape. However, the City Council abruptly changed their minds this week when they decided that instead of a relief channel, they would buy up the 55 homes along Bachman Creek and build a park. There are 187 parks in Dallas, and already adjoining this area, there's a 600-acre park. A park would be costly and nice, but would it alleviate the flooding problem? I talked to Diane Foster, a recent homeowner.
We've lived here a year and a half. We were married in our home. This is our wedding invitation, which says, in the new home of the bride and bridegroom, 4269 Shorecrest.
What do you plan to do now? What's your solution?
Well, one thing that we're going to do, all of the homeowners on Sunday are going to put these signs in their yard, or signs like this, which say that our houses are not for sale, and if it happens that someone does have to sell, maybe because they're being transferred or something, we have all banded together to say we'll buy the homes. We will not sell to the city.
I also talked to Shields Mitchell, another homeowner who's directly affected by the City Council's decision.
The solution now, since the floodplain, our watershed has been totally covered with houses, roofs, and streets and gutters. As the water has gradually risen higher and higher, the only thing left to do, reservoirs cannot be built now up our watershed. The only thing left to do now is to build a channel to carry off this water below our homes' levels. And it's a simple solution, one told to us a great deal less expensive than the channelization which the homeowners desire. And that's what we all are asking for, and that's all.
Have you made any concessions to the city?
All of us, I think, have offered concessions. I'll give them my property up to my back door. 5 homeowners have made definite, calculated, surveyed concessions to the city, trying to do their part to help all the homeowners, including themselves, of course, to reduce this massive flood problem that we have.
A man's home is his castle. It's a part of him, and it's a part of his children, too. I have a letter here from a girl who grew up on Bachman Creek. She says, I have lived here for 18 years, and have loved it more than I could ever say or write down on paper. For your information, this is the first time I have ever written in protest to anyone about anything. Today, however, I felt moved to write. And she goes on in this letter to tell about what it was like to grow up on Bachman Creek. She ends by saying, when my parents and other neighbors are tired of fighting, there will be kids who live down here who believe as I do, standing right there, ready to take it over. If you have any questions, call me here at Contact Aid. That number is 263-3404. That's Contact Aid, and this is Jean Lupin.
If I asked you or faculty and students of this college or any other group of Americans, just 10 elementary questions on American foreign policy, you'd all flunk. Why? Don't take offense at it. So would the Foreign Relations Committee of the United States Senate. Because we've got to the point here now where there's being concealed from the elected officials of the American people and being concealed from the American people facts that they're entitled to know about their government in the field of foreign policy.
Who initiated this policy?
Well, it's been escalated with Eisenhower starting in 1953. The deal of it before, but not to the crisis stage that it started with Eisenhower. Don't forget what Eisenhower did in 1953.
Yeah, well, I kind of expected a ball game like that. The hitters, of course, are behind, and I surprised myself a little bit by being that strong. I think Messersmith felt the same way. But, well, I pitched my share of those ball games around here. I realize it, and I know what I'm up against, so I just pattern my pitching that way.
How long do you think it will take before the batters do get that timing back?
Well, I thought 10 days, but now again, there are individual cases where it's not nearly that long, and then there's other cases where it'll take longer, depending, of course, if the guy's platooned or not.
Do you learn something about the ball club the second time out from season to season? Now you'll be facing California for the second time. Will you pitch them any differently than you did out on the West Coast?
In some cases, yes, and others, no. Your young rookies, of course, so you're going to pitch the same way until they prove you different if you're getting them out. Other guys, like your better hitters, they change from year to year. They look for a ball a little more. Maybe they change their pattern of hitting a little bit, and you kind of work this as you go along.
Just a continual guessing game, isn't it?
No question about it.
Are you excited about opening the season at home?
Very much so. We've, of course, looked forward to it for a long time, as everybody else has, and it's finally come to that point now. And certainly, let's get it on the road, and let's get into a good routine here so we can start winning some ball games.
You know, Frank Howard, in his first workout here during the strike, looked around and said, it's a pitcher's ballpark. You're smiling as though it might be.
It might be. Again, I hate to make any early predictions because I haven't pitched here yet, but all indications point that way because of the prevailing wind and because of the size of the ballpark. Of course, you still got to pitch right, and you still got to keep the ball in the park regardless of how big it is.
Well, it would have made me feel a lot better if we would have won last night. But I think I'm getting a lot of ice time now in the playoffs and starting to come around. I sort of out of shape after I come back off my injury, and the legs are starting to come back now. I start to feel a lot better.
How would you compare the two teams, Tulsa and Dallas? Is there a great deal of similarity?
I think we've got a better skating team than Tulsa, and that's what we have to do if we want to win. We've got to go out there and skate and carry that puck, and we've got to hit them. We've got to come out there and we've got to run them, you know. We've got to let them know that we're in the game.
Wednesday night, you came out and outshot them in the first period, something like 16-8. Do you anticipate the same type of an opening tonight?
I sure do. I hope so. Anyway, I hope we come out really fired up and just go all over them.
Can you recall any one period where you've had so many shots when none of them went in, and not only the first, but the second and third?
Well, we've had so many bad breaks. It was last night we had so many shots on net, and the puck was bouncing, and it just wouldn't go in for us. It just wasn't our night.
And in hockey, the puck can take some funny bounces, can't it, Bobby?
Well, it certainly did last night, Jerry, and unfortunately it was against us. It was one of them games where we had numerous chances, but we just didn't put the puck in the net, and that's the name of the game in the end, is what the score is at the end of the game.
In your years as coach, have you seen any number of shots like that not go in a game?
Yes, I've seen it. You have a few games during the course of the year where you might outplay the other team and you're getting all the shots and you're not really capitalizing on the good opportunities, and the ones that you should are hitting the leg, you know, when they got the goaltender possibly out of the net or down and they got an excellent chance to score, and it hits a leg or it hits a post. And it's really, them games are a night of frustration, which I thought it was in our case last night.
Are you going to go with the same type of attack tonight?
Well, Jerry, I think we controlled most of the play, and I think that for the game, and they played an intelligent game, I thought, Tulsa, and they're a tough hockey club, but I'm going to go basically on the same type of a game. Probably I'll try and get our guys up a little more physically for the game, but I feel that we'll go in the same kind of a game if we get the same kind of chances and limit their club to the same amount of chances that they had in the first game. I think we can win the game. I mean, it's not every game that the puck's not going to go in for us or we're not going to capitalize.
Melinda Ramos and Sandi are two very special young ladies. They're Arlington Apple Corps ambassadors, special representatives for the city's tourism program. They're delivering material today in front of City Hall, free apples, Apple Corps buttons, and the Arlington Apple Corps Crash Course, which is designed to make each citizen an expert on their city and a recognized Arlington ambassador. Arlington expects $100 million in new tourism business this season through such attractions as Seven Seas, Six Flags, and Lion Country Safari, and now, of course, the Texas Rangers. Baseball is what's on everyone's mind in Arlington and the Dallas-Fort Worth area today. Final preparations of the Rangers Diamond and Arlington Stadium are being made here this afternoon, and in just about a little over an hour, the first Major League Baseball action in the North Texas region and the first ever American League action in the state of Texas will begin with the play ball throwout by Mayor Tom Vandergrift. There'll be a little more than 20,000 people here tonight. It's still a little hard to believe, but Big League Baseball has finally arrived here. Photographer Reggie Ward and I will have a special report on tonight's game at 10 o'clock. Jim Green, Channel 8 News on the Move at Arlington Stadium.